Welcome to the Commercial Kitchen Chronicles, the original food service equipment repair podcast built by technicians for technicians. Whether you're on the front lines of repair, keeping the kitchen running smoothly, or just passionate about the food service repair industry, this podcast is your go-to source for expert insight, tech tips, and real stories from the field. This episode is brought to you by RIDGID. Some invent to change the world. At RIDGID, we invent for those who build it. In 1923, we invented the modern pipe wrench, and since then, everything that carries a RIDGID name has been designed and crafted for strength, effectiveness, and legacy. We made it our mission to build for the world expert tradespeople, those who know the limits of the job and how to exceed them. These tools are known the world over as industry-leading products that allow professionals to complete jobs quickly and reliably. We celebrate our shared dedication to the trades and promise as long as you keep going, we'll keep building the tools of performance your work demands. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Commercial Kitchen Chronicles. My name is Pat Finley. I'm joined by very special guest Nick Pattas, and we're going to get right to it. But today, our episode is brought to you by my friends over at RIDGID. I really appreciate RIDGID supporting Commercial Kitchen Chronicles and all skilled trades. So, what is up, Nick, man? How you been?
I'm good, man. Just another day in the food service industry. What about yourself?
Same. So I just found out that Nick is actually pretty much a coworker. He works up in Canada for a sister company. So I'm excited about that. So that's really cool. So I followed Nick for a while on Instagram, and I'll tag his social media stuff in the thing if he wants me to. But I follow him on LinkedIn as well. And Nick's just out there killing it. He's doing refrigeration. He's in the kitchens. He's showing everything he's doing. He's showing the proper way to do things. And I really appreciate him showing off his work, man. He's doing good stuff. So
I appreciate you recognizing it, man. That means a lot.
yeah, it's really cool. I'd love seeing kitchen guys, man, because that's where my heart is. That's where I've been for almost 20 years now. I started off as an electrician. I like watching their stuff too and seeing their stuff. But kitchen guys that really have pride and passion and want to do a good job and want to show others and show it off. It's got a place in my heart. So
yeah, man, it's a very niche industry that nobody really thinks about when it comes to literally everybody's daily routines, whether you're driving to go get a coffee from McDonald's or whatever. All those businesses, restaurants, establishments need to run, and guys like you and me help them run.
Yeah, that's for sure. So you told me that you grew up in the restaurants but not on the repair side. You want to talk about how you guys started in the restaurants and how you ended up doing restaurant repair?
So my parents always grew up in the restaurant business. So like they owned the restaurant and whatnot. And I essentially grew up in the back house and it just wasn't my thing. I just essentially took myself out of that. I chased my gas license, got into residential heating and cooling to begin with, learned a lot from a few guys there, bounced around, and then I ended up at RG Henderson. And for 10 years, I lived and breathed McDonald's, grills, fryers, Burger Kings, anything really to do with QSR.
Nice. So what people don't know is QSR is quick service restaurant. So you said something about gas license. So down here, there's our industry. There's no license requirements. It's pretty much the wild.
Man, you guys are the wild west. It's way different up here.
Yeah, I've got other friends that do like HVAC and stuff, and they're like, "Man, no, you gotta do this. You can't do this." I'm like, "What?" I'm like,
"Yeah,
do whatever we want here."
So essentially, the way it works here is you obviously have to go to gas school, and you have 3 levels of licenses. You have your G3.
Mm-hmm.
Which you need supervision under a G2. A G2 is your second level, and that allows you to work up to equipment of 400,000 BTUs.
Mm-hmm.
Anything above 400,000 BTUs, you need your G1. So you need to get each level. If you get your G1, you can essentially work on anything gas operated, no matter what power output it has. But yeah, it's very different between what you guys do in the US and what we do here in Canada. And we're also very strictly regulated with TSSA. So that is an entity that goes around and inspects your work, make sure you do it up to code and this and that. And if you don't, you get fined.
Are they doing that on like normal repairs? Like if you're
on
a reach and cooler, if you don't do it? up to par, they'll fine you, huh? That's wild.
Exactly. So essentially, if I walk into a kitchen and I do a service call there, let's say I miss something that's out of code. If a TSSA inspector goes in afterwards, I'm going to get fined because I didn't notice a violation in that kitchen.
That is wild, man.
Yeah, man.
There's nothing like that here. Like if you're lazy and you do half-ass work, and the only
Oh
person,
no,
the only
not
person
here.
that's a customer or your boss, you're not getting fined by the government or TSSA or anything. That is wild, man.
Not here, man. And then the other thing is that you do achieve your gas license. Now, let's say you want to work for yourself, you have to get a contractor's license to be able to work, even though you've achieved your gas license. But I guess you guys kind of have that down in the States as well, where you have to be a licensed contractor, right?
Well, it just depends. Every state's different. Every municipality, like city or county, is different. Like some you don't have to do anything, some you do. And if you stand a certain dollar amount, you don't have to do it. In some places, dude, there's no like commonality across the board here. It's
Oh man. So here is if you're going to be your own contractor, you have to get registered through TSSA, which is the entity that I mentioned before.
Mhm.
And then I think every year or every 2 years, I don't remember exactly what it is, but they do an audit on you and they come and inspect 7 jobs that you did to make sure that they're up to code and whatnot.
So you got to keep record of everything, and they can come back
Yes,
and look at it.
100%. Yeah.
What you did here. So what's to say if they pick 7 and like someone has worked on it since then, since you did, a different company or somebody, and they messed it up? Like, so do you take pictures of all your work to prove that you?
I do. I do. And then I'm not sure how you guys work with gas lines, but here in Canada, once you do a gas line, even if it is replacing a hose in the back of a combi or a fryer, you have to put a tag on it that it was changed on this day. You did a pressure test on this day, leak check, yada, yada, yada. So
Wow.
every time you change a gas hose or a piece of equipment, there's a specific tag that needs to be left on it.
That's wild. No, we don't have nothing like that, man.
Wild, wild west.
We just don't. How we work is we just don't do anything in the wall. Once it's out of the wall, we'll work on it, but anything in the wall, we don't do it. So, and yeah, that's pretty crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Man, I guess that probably eliminates a lot of people that really shouldn't be doing our job.
100% it does, but you still have the bad apples of service techs everywhere, right? You're still going to have service techs that don't really take pride in what they do, don't care about, what's best for the customer at the end of the day. So bad apples everywhere. And then the refrigeration side of things here, that's different as well. That's considered a red seal trade.
Mm-hmm.
You need 5,000 it's either 5 or 9,000. I don't remember. 3 levels of schooling. You pass all that, and then you write your final for your refrigeration license, and then you're good to go.
So were you doing schooling for refrigeration when you were doing cooking, or?
So I had a point where I needed a change, and I needed to get my refrigeration. If not, my other option was going to be to leave and find another spot.
Mm-hmm.
But the company supported me. They stuck with me. I invested in my own tools. I invested in the top of line Testos. Every single guy that's there right now has analog gauges, didn't believe in digital this, digital that. I was essentially probably the youngest reefer tech at the company at the time. And yeah, got signed up for my apprenticeship, chased it, worked it, threw myself into the OT rotation, on-call rotation, sorry. And yeah, it was sink or swim, and I made it.
So that's a lot like me. So I came on and did hot site for like 3 years, and I was doing the same, customers over and over, and got pretty bored with it, and I wanted to do refrigeration. And the company that was at didn't want to, invest in me for that, so I left and went somewhere else. And but yeah, I could see getting bored just doing, especially if you're in the same chains nonstop, you're seeing the same things. It just like you get to where you dread work, man. And doing what I do now, I don't dread work because I'm doing something different every day.
Yeah.
So, do you ever do hot side anymore? Or are you just strictly refrigeration?
No, not anymore. It's strictly refrigeration right now. And yeah, it's ice machines, under counters, walk-in freezers, coolers. Haven't really touched much of ice cream machines. Stoltings and all that. I haven't really touched anything like that yet, but I would love to, because at some point that's going to become an important thing, I think, especially when summer rolls around and you have all those festivals and whatnot. People want their ice cream machines to be working. But yeah, I just love the reefer side right now. It's always something different. It's always on a roof, maybe not. It's just different. And then the whole R290 thing makes it very niche as to how safe we got to be when it comes to working with flammable refrigerants. Everybody's losing their mind over the A2Ls, but
we've had R290 for
we have R290 for like the past 4 or 5 years, literally a bomb.
Dude, people lose their mind on this post. I'm like, oh, you're new here, right? I'm like, you can hold a lighter to yours and it still won't light. Watch this.
Yeah, no, it ain't a fun game. So
no, yeah, I teach refrigeration at Cefesa, and I taught a couple weeks ago, and it was a blast. But I like to make sure those guys know how to pinch off and braze under pressure for R290 for warranty stuff. I show them how to do that, and I did it in class like 250 psi. It's like you'll never see 250 psi on a running system, but here you go, and showed them how to do it, and let them do it. It's kind of fun to see them do it and see them try. And I did it. I had them do it with R290 because I was out of nitrogen for the day. So I was like, okay, we're just going to do propane in here. Let's see what you guys are made of.
Yeah.
So it's not bad. I've been doing it for R290 for 8-10 years, and people just freak out. I'm just like, yeah, it is what it is, man. It's not the end of the world. Just be safe, purge, 5-10 minutes.
That's the key word right there, bro. Purge.
Yeah, don't cut anything out. Don't cut anything out. I mean, don't braise anything out. Cut everything out you can.
Purge.
Was that your video today? Was that your video today, purging nitrogen?
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was yours. Yeah, so when I teach it, I tell them to cut out whatever and then purge for at least 5 minutes and check it with your, combustion leak detector. And if it's still going off, give it another 5 minutes. But I've watched guys try to just dump it and then try to embrace stuff and shooting flames out. I'm like, are you stupid?
The best part about R290 is no recovery.
Dude, I love it. If I know I'm getting into a system like a compressor, I just walk in with my hand tools. I pull the back off and I just cut the lines off and just walk back out and start grabbing tools. Come back.
Yep.
I'm like, just let it vent on its own, and I push it out for 5 minutes while I'm bringing more stuff in. And generally by that time you're good. Now, I do have a Navac recovery machine that's actually rated for A3s. I haven't used it yet. I threw it on a truck this weekend. I don't know what I'd reclaim or what I'd put it in, but it's actually rated for propane. And I was kind of surprised. Yeah, they sent me over. I've got their reclaim machine that's rated for A3s, and then I've got their vacuum pump that's rated for A2s and A3s. So I'm gonna try it out. But yeah, I don't. Why would you
need like a special tank to reclaim R290?
That's why I was like, you're going to create a propane tank if you have an R290 only recovery tank. I'm like, I guess I can use this to power my grill or something.
Good idea.
But I'm anxious to see what that's going to do. I don't know if I'll ever use it on R290 just because it's adding 30 minutes onto a process I don't need to add onto.
Yeah, 100%. Especially for like a 2-3 ounce system, 5 ounce system. Mm-hmm. No point. Cut the line, it's drained in like 10 seconds.
So I did. Do you do any structural concepts work?
Yeah, we do. And I love their units. They have, in my opinion, some of the most well-built open end case displays.
Oh, yeah.
Everything pulls out.
Definitely. So they've got a guy that goes around servicing like their hot stuff, but they're wanting to start doing their own service for some refrigeration stuff. And he was in my class. And he said they're actually coming out with an R290 open air case. And it's going to have, depending on the size, it may have up to 6 systems in it. So it's going to have 6 evaporators, 6 condensing units,
6 compressors.
Yeah, it's it's 6 units. So it's going to be like 6 condensing units and 6 evaporators. So it'll be 6 independent systems in it. How are you guys going to do this? I'm like, this is going to be absolutely insane.
Yeah, the wiring to go into that thing and the controls will be one thing.
Yeah. And it's like, how much power is this thing going to pull? I mean, I guess those little compressors pull like 3 to 4 amps, but you put 6 of them in there, you're pulling, 30 amps at that point.
Yeah. Unless they use some kind of like inverter technology or whatever.
I don't know. I'm anxious to see. He was supposed to send me some pictures, so
That's pretty bomb. So, what
yeah.
is your most loved piece of equipment to work on?
Refrigeration, it's kind of toss up. I don't mind structural. I do a lot of Delfield warranty work. Um, it just changes on the day and the mood. Some days I like working on hot stuff. Some days I hate working on hot stuff. It just depends, man, on my mood. Um, but I mean, the structural is pretty nice to work on. Generally, they're not bad. The coils are all, the evaporator coils are easy to get to. It's all right there. Just generally slide out, so they're pretty fun. They're not a whole hassle to work on. So I like structural.
What do you think about those turbo air self-cleaning condensers?
Well, structural's got some too now.
Do they really?
Yeah, they've got some too. It's got the little brushes where it goes down once a day. It like brushes down and back up and blows the stuff off. The one I worked on today, I made a little video on. It had that self-cleaning coil.
Does absolutely nothing in my opinion.
Just pushes it further in, I think.
Yeah.
Like the outside stays clean, but the inside is pretty bad.
And then you have some manufacturers that have this idea where the motor is going to spin one way to start, and then it's going to spin the other way to blow it back out. That doesn't do anything either.
Yeah, because it doesn't have enough force to really do anything. Because it's only blowing that through for like 30 seconds or something. Dude, the first time I seen that, I like freaked out. I was like, "Oh, what?" I was like, "What's going on here?" I was like,
"Wire wrong."
I was like, "How did I wire this wrong?" I was like, "It's 3 wires." I'm like, but no, it was just it running backwards for a second. So let's see. But
so for the fryers, what do you think of the rail jobs for Frymaster and all that?
I've never had a problem with those, man. So many guys struggle with those burner rails, and I've worked on Frymaster for 20 years, and I've never had an issue. And the new ones are even easier because I just shove them in through the back, so you don't take all that stuff off the front. You take about half the stuff off the back, and you can just shove them right in. I've heard horror stories of guys having to use like 2x4s and push on them, but even on the old H50s, I didn't have to do that. So now, if they're full of gunk and stuff, you pry out the gunk, and if it's full of gunk, generally it's probably time for a new fry pot.
Definitely. There was a time there where I guess I actually saw you recently post that about the probes still being loose. That's always been a problem. And then they leak out, and then you have oil covering the whole front of the pot and the insulation.
That was a pot plug, so that was specific to one customer they had, and those fry pots are made to have an oil's back sensor in the front. So it's just like it's a pretty cool system actually. It's like looks like a high limit, but there's really it's a heater, and then it's got a limit in there, and that heater runs all the time. And when there's oil there, that oil absorbs the heat and like dissipates it. If there's no oil there, that limit gets too hot and opens up, and they won't allow the heat circuit to work. So this customer didn't want those because it's like $1,000 per pot or $1,200 per pot option. So they didn't want them. So they put in these pot plugs. Well, unfortunately, they didn't use a stainless steel pot plug. They used a black iron. So that black iron and that stainless steel fry pot contract at different rates, and it just backed itself out. And we'll say just absolutely hammered them in there. I've changed a lot of fry pots from that just because it's easier to just change a whole fry pot versus try to pull that whole front off and insulation and everything else.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
And then the customer's got a brand new fry pot. And if I do a fry pot, I do all new probes, all new limits, all new igniters. It's all brand new. It makes it just a lot smoother of an install. Plus, it's all new parts. You're limiting a lot of the warranty issues, callback issues. So, but yeah, that's I don't mind them now, and especially since they're going through the back, man. They just slide right in for me. I've had pretty good luck with them throughout my career. Jesse said he's had one blow out and weld itself to the rail. Yeah, I've seen some blow out insulation, and it'll burn up part of that rail, and it may fuse to it. But you can change that rail now on the top, I think. You just can't change the bottom one. I think that's what it is. I know one of them you can change, one of them you can't. I think the bottom's part of the fry pot. I think the top's part of that insulation piece. But, that gasket's the biggest pain in the butt to get on there. And stand
Yeah, wrapping around the burner and then pushing the burner in.
Yep. Yep,
Yeah.
I slid it in. I looked to see the gaskets hanging inside. I'm like, oh, let's pull it back.
Definitely. Do you guys deal with a lot of propane there, or are you natural gas?
We're natural gas. Generally, if it's propane, it's like on a food truck or something, or on a
Yeah, same here.
food trailer. And I absolutely hate it because generally it's just dirty because people run it out of propane and then wonder why everything sets up and everything doesn't burn right. And then, by the time we get back there, they've changed the propane tank. And propane's great. Yeah, well, it wasn't yesterday, now was it?
I've never had one food truck where the fryers, burners, whether it was a Vulcan or a Pitco, that they were not just fully sooted up all the way in the back.
Yeah, and you can't get that stuff off your skin, man. Once it's on there, dude.
You essentially have to pull the fryer out and gut out the pot. And if you want to save it, you got to pressure wash it to get all that stuff out. Only way.
Yeah, do you think someone would come up with like a low pressure shutdown system for propane? Like I better be quiet. I could patent that and probably make a fortune. But if this pressure gets too low, it just shuts off the propane. That way you don't, you're not setting everything up and costing you money in the long run.
That's what I don't understand why they don't do that with reach-in coolers. Put in a low pressure switch to save the compressor from just all day long in a vacuum.
Yeah, Delta had one that had a little bit for a while on one of their higher end units, and I haven't seen one in a while, so it may have went away. They call it a loss of charge switch.
I have never seen that or heard of it. That's good to know, though. Loss of charge switch.
Yeah, that's what they call it. Because a lot of those units, when they get low, and I'm not picking on Delta, a lot of them do it, man. The leaks in that condensate loop, and it gets low, and it just venturis that water and just sucks it in. So instead of that loss of charge switch or a low pressure switch, it'll save from sucking in a ton of water.
Interesting.
Yep. I mean, I think everything should have it, truthfully, but that just make our job easier. Nothing better than having to tear apart reach-in cooler and blow out the evaporator, blow out the condenser coil of RX-11, try to dry it out. I had a manufacturer had me do that one day, and I was like, "You're crazy, dude." I was like, "The money you're gonna pay me to do this, you could have sent a whole new unit." I'm like, "Why are you doing this?" "Oh, it's because that's what I want done." And I was like, "Cool. What's your name?"
Damn.
Put it on paperwork.
100%.
So Jesse wants to know if you have any experience with microwaves or turbo chefs or Mary Chef high-speed ovens.
I love turbo chefs and I loved Mary chefs when I used to do the hot side. They were the easiest thing to work on, and it was butter money every time.
Really? I don't work on a ton of them, so I kind of struggle a little bit on them. Now I got training coming up next month on them, but we're kind of limited as actually working on them. We don't have the warranty work for one brand. I think we may be picking it up, but I think if I just did it more often, I'd be more comfortable with it. I had training probably 15, 16 years ago, and it's most of those things have changed in 15 years.
So the biggest thing with those ovens, so the old Turbo Chef models, the wave guides used to be at the bottom of the unit. You had the cover glass on top. So anything that got cooked, all the grease,
go right down
goes down. Eventually, over time, it seeps into the wave guides, and then you just fry your microwave system. So that's when Turbo Chef started switching everything, and then they came out with the Encore unit and all that. That still had its own issues, but the biggest thing is the customer maintaining the units, making sure that they keep that covered glass on the inside clean, and that if the glass ever cracks, it sucks, it's expensive, but you need to get it changed because that's when you get grease migration, and then that's when you just ruin your wave guide. Wave guide cooks your mag, and then you blow fuses, then everything's down. They're pretty butter to work on, and I find Mary Chef's tech support and Turbo Chef's tech support is spot on. If you ever need anything, you call them, and they can help you figure anything out that you can't.
Yeah, the wait time's what kills me when I call Turbo Chef.
The what, sorry?
Wait time?
The wait time, yeah.
You can be waiting an hour, dude. I'm like, man, this is I've had a call where it said I had to call them from site. I was like an hour and 35 minutes just to get someone to answer the phone. I was like, oh my gosh. I haven't called them in a while, so maybe it's changed, but it used to be pretty bad. I used to do a lot of Turbo Chef years ago when I first started, probably 18, 19 years ago. And that's when they had the wave guides on the bottom at like Subways.
Mm-hmm.
There was an upgrade kit. We were going around and we were changing waveguide covers, gaskets, mags, and we were just going through and like every day be like, oh, pick a Subway and go do it. Pick a Subway and go do it. But yeah, I can relate when you say, when the waves guys were on the bottom and just everything falls in there. And
Everything falls in there.
like the glass is broke and like chunks is missing and they're just like running this thing. I'm like, are you guys insane?
Too cheap to fix it. Too cheap to call.
Yeah. That's a wild chain to work in, man. I don't know about up there, but down here it's wild.
Subways?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild here too. With the new VU ovens, and then which is like the bread proofers and all that stuff. And then most of them now have Mary shifts. And then you have the Duke cold pans,
Yep.
which now they're switching to H&K from what I last saw. That was not a fun unit to work on, but that's another story.
So does yours have Bazerba slicers?
Yes, we do have those too.
So yeah, and all mine like to drop them off the counter and then say, no, nothing's wrong with it. I'm like, dude, it's not even square anymore. I'm like, I walk there and take a bunch of pictures and buy a new slicer. See you later.
Some of the repairs, man, are insane. Like the cost of a repair versus you having to buy a new unit is sometimes crazy.
Nice. So you've been in the restaurants for quite a bit of time. It sounds like you've done a lot of stuff. I know you said you worked on a lot of McDonald's, Burger Kings. That's pretty much where you cut your teeth in the beginning. Do you miss that side of it, or are you just kind of like, now I'm on to something else?
Honestly, no, I don't. I do not miss the grease part of it. The hours of the overtime was great because the only time you can get in there would have to be at the crack of dawn before anybody's ever awake.
Mm-hmm.
So that side of it was great money-wise, but it just became too repetitive with the grease.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to clean. You do the PMs and you have a grill that the upper lower limit switches cannot be found because you just have a stack of grease in between the entire track of the linear actuators and all that stuff. Those are not fun mornings.
So did you just do Garland or did you tailor as well?
So here's the thing. Here in Canada, Garland is its own entity, and then Taylor is under TFI. So we're not allowed to touch TFI equipment.
So here, Taylor is its own thing. And we used to I just seen yesterday, like the Taylor van now says something else on the side of it, but since they got pod in with that Middleby stuff, so I don't know. We don't ever work on Taylor. I think Taylor may be getting in trouble though with the ice cream machines. I think it's kind of going to open up Pandora's box as far as not supporting everybody else working on their stuff because they won't help you out. You can't get any information from them. But I've never worked on Taylors. I've taken out plenty of Taylors and pushed them in dumpsters. So that's about my experience working on Taylor.
Dumpsters.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But yeah, I hear what you're saying on that. And it's kind of, I don't know how it is with Hobart down there for you guys, but when it comes to like dishwasher machines in Hobart, if the unit has any kind of warranty or whatever, Hobart essentially won't help us out with anything like that. It's got to be their own guys.
Yep, it's the same way here. Hobart only. I found some websites where I can find pretty much just about every kind of Hobart manual. Now they say it'll probably change. I'll probably get locked out of it. But I work on a lot of Hobart dish machines. I love dish machines. Now uprights, I don't want to work on under counter, but I'll take any flight or door machine out there. But don't stick me on an under counter dish machine. I don't want no part of it. So
never got into dish machines. That's the one thing I didn't touch. I did install a few. I've never serviced them. I did install a few, and then the first one I installed was a pretty big flight at a university in Toronto. And the moment we yanked out the electrical, the amount of roaches that came out, especially from the buddy, that was it for me.
Yeah, they love dish machines. It's damp.
They love them. I don't know why.
It's damp and hot. I had a Chinese restaurant that used to be in town, and I'd go in there like every 4 to 6 months, and the complaint would be units not heating. and I just grab 2 contactors and go over there and like open up the top, and the contactor won't pull in. It's just jammed full of roaches, and it just finally jammed it up where it wouldn't work anymore. I just changed the contactor and sent it on its way. And 4 or 6 months later, hey, dish machine's not heating again. Just go out there with contactors.
Jesus
They don't
Christ.
bother me. Like, now they will bother me if they get on me, but as long as like they don't get on me, I'm cool. My son's like absolutely paranoid. Like there's places he refuses to go now. He's like, I'm never going there.
I'm like your son. No.
They don't bother me. Now I did make a video a couple months back where I was working on an AeroWorks conveyor, and I pulled the cover down. I knocked on it first. I was like something about like it's never polite just to walk into someone's home or something. And like I pulled the cover down and I put the cover back up because generally, like if you pull the cover down, put it back up, they'll scatter. And then you can drop the cover back down. You can do what you got to do. But one crawled out a hole in the cover and it fell on my lap, and I'm like freaking out, screaming like a little girl.
I remember that video. I commented on it. I'm like, you must be nuts to sit there that comfortable with that thing on you.
Oh, I was losing it. My son was like behind me. My youngest son, he's a trainee. He's my trainee, and he was behind me, and he was just like, dude. He's like, I was doing everything I could to keep him laughing. But no, I got it. I found it. I shoot it off. But yeah, it's just I don't know. I mean, they don't bother me as long as I don't get them on me. Now, I do not wear a coat because of bugs, and I make sure I have a hard bottom tool bag and try to keep it further away from where I'm working. That way, there's some distance between it and whatever's in that kitchen. But yeah, most of the time we'll tell a customer, dude, hey, we can't work on this, so you do something about this.
Yeah, I've walked away from a couple of places. I'm not gonna lie. If I remove a panel and the floor moves, that's a signal. That's a signal.
Yeah, or the wall moves, like you turn the light on and the wall moves, like, ooh, this is gonna be a bad
That's one. Even worse. That's even worse. No, thank you.
We're gonna scare everybody off. We're talking about bugs and grease, and I mean, it's a fun job. I mean, I do have fun doing what I do. I mean, I meet a lot of cool people. You can go into any kitchen, you can crack jokes with people. Most of them are, most of them have pretty good sense of humor. Most of them will joke around. I don't have a problem with anybody in the kitchen. It's a fun environment to work in.
Definitely. The kitchen humor between chefs when you hear them go at each other sometimes, that's the best.
Oh, yeah, you think they're going to kill each other. And they're like, they're over there. You just said that to him and he's laughing? I'm like, man, if someone said it to me, I'd be ready to kill him.
Yeah, it's different. It's a good trait to get into if you want to, 100%. Obviously, it has its little niche things when it comes to cleanliness here and there. But hey, if plumbers can clean shit, we can do that.
Dude, yeah, I've watched some of those videos of plumbers, and they're like pulling off a cap, and it's like turds are flying out, and they're just like sitting there like no gloves on. Like,
those guys are the true heroes, man.
I'm like, whatever you're making is not enough, man. Whatever. I see a video the other day, a pipe busted into their house, and he like pulled the cover off, and it was just like toilet paper and shit in the entire crawl space. I'm like, dude, I don't know what they pay you, but whew.
Shout out to all the plumbers out there. You guys are the real heroes.
Jesse Sinez brought up a good point. My favorite customers are lunch ladies, and they are some of the worst mouth women or individuals I've ever seen in my entire life. Like lunch ladies, just there's a different breed, man. I have some stuff I could say, but I'm not gonna say it on here because I'll probably get in trouble for it. I told my wife about it. My wife's like, I don't want you going back to that school anymore. It was that bad. So, like, these lunch ladies do not care. I'm like, look, ladies, I'm married. Like, you ain't got a ring on your finger? And I was like, yeah, because I got shocked once and I don't wear a ring anymore. It has nothing to do with anything else.
Amen to that. I don't wear a wedding ring either for that reason.
A microwave got me. Got a discharged capacitor through my wedding ring, and luckily it was up against the side, so it was grounded. So it didn't shock me, but it just went through my ring and burned a spot in my ring. And now I'm just like, nope, I don't wear it. It's been in my safe for like 18 years.
Yeah, microwaves are no joke when it comes to those capacitors discharging because they carry a lot of whack behind them.
Yeah. It's like 4,000 volts, depending on the model or whatever. No, thank you.
Yep, like crazy. I've heard so many stories of a couple of guys in the States that were working on a non-core unit and they thought it was discharged, then it blew a hole through the guy's elbow.
Yeah.
Rough.
There was a guy not too far from here that his dad owned a service company, and he came in the next morning and found his son dead on the floor, got shocked by working on a microwave after hours, like in the shop, died. So they're no.
Microwave seems simple, man, but because you have those step-up transformers in there, it's and then obviously the capacitors to go along with it. It's not something you want to take lightly safety-wise. So
No, I had a guy that was trying to check how he was getting ready. I caught him. Luckily, he was getting ready to check output of a high voltage transformer with his meter, and I was like, "What are you doing?"
No,
I'm gonna check voltage. I was like, your meter leads are rated for like 600 to 1,000 volts. I was like, that's 4,000 volts. I was like, your meter leads you're gonna blow your meter up. It's gonna jump through that insulation on that wire. I was like, stop. I was like, you don't ever do that. I went right up to my boss, like, he's not allowed to touch a microwave, a speed oven, or anything unless somebody's with him because he's back there trying to check high voltage.
that would not be a good day.
Yeah. So then you got to walk through, explain to him, okay, to check a transformer, you're just going to ohm out this. It needs to be this, this, and this. You want to make sure there's no power present, of course, that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's one thing I don't enjoy working on microwaves. And like I said, I just don't do it enough. So what are some of the challenges you see, working in refrigeration in a restaurant?
The biggest challenge would have to be if it's in the line of the kitchen, like in a busy kitchen, and then they want some ridiculous service hours that you can't meet. I think that is the biggest challenge. But as far as are the units difficult to work on, they're not. It's just the environment. Now, I don't know how it is for traffic with you guys in Indiana and whatnot, but today was brutal. It took me almost 2.5 hours to get to downtown Toronto to go do a service call, where usually it would take me an hour and 15.
Nice. So you're about like me. I'm an hour and 15 from downtown Indianapolis. And some days, like you said, it's 2.5, 3 hours. So just depends. Some days it's great and some days it's terrible. We're supposed to get our first snow tomorrow, so I'm sure it's gonna be great tomorrow.
Yeah.
Construction everywhere.
But yeah, I think that is probably the most difficult if it's like a line cooler, especially if it's a built-in line cooler or something you can't pull out. That's something you definitely got to do after hours. Beyond that, any machine that's near a fryer, those coils will get so plugged up, and it's just not going to be a good time. You got to clear out that coil from that grease. Yeah, that's essentially it.
Yeah, build-ins on the lines are terrible. There's a huge burger chain. It's a sit-down dining burger place. It's got a bird as their person, Red Robin, and they used to use built-in drawer coolers and reach-in coolers, and they were all remote condensed up into a small rack system up on the roof. And it was just an absolute nightmare to work on. I think most of them have cut out all that stuff and went to self-contained you can pull out now because they realize that it's just a nightmare to maintain it, and then leaks in the wall and everything else just, compounded on top of that.
I agree with you on that. I don't think any kitchen should have a remote unit for an under counter. It just doesn't make sense. Like, it really doesn't. With a self-contained unit, you can literally diagnose it in 30 to 45 minutes if you got the time, room, nobody's crawling over you. But if you got a remote, now you got to run up and down. Yeah, self-contained is the way to go.
Yep, and then everything's right there. You're working generally a pound of refrigerant, R290. You're 5 ounces. I've got some dual systems where it's 2 5-ounce systems, but most of it's pretty well. It's all just right there. It can be a pain, so sometimes it's crammed in a pretty tight little spot, but I don't mind it. It seems like manufacturers are getting better. They're getting a lot of them now where the ends come off the units where you can get right into the side versus having to pull the whole condensing sled out and that kind of stuff. So I think they're finally starting to listen. Either that or they're trying to cut down their warranty times, one of the two.
Yeah, I'm also noticing some specific manufacturers are now leaving suction lines on R290, which is interesting.
So that's a good point, because I've got a lot of people that always think that leaving ports on R290 is illegal, and I'm like, no, it's not.
It's not. It's just best practice.
Yeah, so like, um, a lot of manufacturers have cut access ports off for years. I mean, on all their critical charge stuff, and it has zero to do with the refrigerant. It's more to do about people not doing a proper job diagnosing and just slapping gauges on there first thing, and then you know, you throw hoses on a R290 system holds 3 ounces, and if you got 5 foot hoses, you're losing 2.5 ounces of refrigerant just in your hoses. So
That
you
is a
don't.
great point, and that's why if you do service on reach-in coolers, you have to have probes.
Yep, probes or stubby gauges with no hoses. I don't care which one, but I preach probes. I preach it both ways, but I use a probe, and it's a game changer. I use Field Piece right now,
Oh,
and
you're a field piece guy?
I those are the first ones I bought, and then I'm wanting to get some JB ones, so maybe get some of those. I don't know. Navac's got a pretty cool set out too, so I need to look through and see what everybody's coming out with. I'll probably go at AHR and walk around and see what the latest one is and find out which one I want. But
Was it Yellow Jacket or was it JB that has the charge port for the probes?
it's JB. So JB was the first one with the screen on the probe. So like you don't have to have your phone. It's got a little LCD screen on there, and it tells you like the pressure, and you can set it to like what refrigerant it is, and it'll tell you the temperature, saturation temperature. And then they also have that little port on the bottom, so you can just screw a hose right onto it.
That's a good feature to have.
Yeah, because then you're not carrying around charging tee. Like I have charging tees. My kit for my field piece is it's got my 2 pressure transducers, my 3 clamps, my 3 psychrometers, but then it's also got charging tees, core removal tools in there, all kind of core depressors in there. But if you can eliminate, half that stuff with that, charging port built in, that's saving, leak points and everything else.
100%. So speaking on the ports, if you work on a system and you're working on R290, are you sealing it or are you leaving test ports on it?
If it's under warranty, I do whatever the manufacturer wants. Out of warranty, I do whatever I want.
Fair point.
So, I mean, a lot of manufacturers, Silver King, a few other manufacturers are coming out with factory ports on them. It's got heat shrink over them. So, like I said, if it's under warranty, I do whatever the manufacturer wants. If it's out of warranty, it's probably going to stay on there, honestly.
Yeah.
I try to cover them up so people don't see it to try to make them do a little bit more work. Like the Delfields have that, like, they have the insulation over it, so over the process tube, so you kind of just like that back over, and people won't know unless they pull it off or feel for it. But under warranty, I do whatever the manufacturer wants. But I mean, 'cause that's 20 minutes, and then you're saving. And if you screw up, that's adding 2 hours to your time because you're back to pulling a vacuum.
Exactly.
That's why on R290 I used to be real bad about, like, I was going to the truck, I'd take something out. But an R290 unit, I'm too paranoid. So if I got to pinch it off, I'm leaving my vacuum pump in. I'm leaving everything in until I get it pinched off, and then I'm taking everything out in a mad dash. So,
yeah, 100%. Have you ever had an issue with sealing something when you first tried it?
yeah, that's why I use that block, man, because I hate that vice grip one. No, I can get them to work, but dude, it has to be so tight.
Yeah, where like you're scared that you're gonna snip it off because of how tight it is, and then you're just starting from square one again.
Yeah. So I generally use the block unless I absolutely have no choice. What about you?
The block is the way to go. But I've also got my vice grips set up to the point where I tested it on a piece of 1/4 inch in my truck just to see how tight I can get it before it actually nips or does anything. And I got that pretty on lock for when I do those. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm just always scared of that thing because you only got one chance, and then you're starting over. So, and then you're putting a port back on there. It is what it is. A lot of times, I'll pinch it off, and then I'll put a probe on the strader and see if it has pressure, and then try to vent it out. And if it doesn't build back up, I know I'm sealed off. Then I'll cut it off real quick and do it. That's what I try to do, but yeah, I've gotten a lot better. When I first started, dude, I hated it. I'd break every pipe off. I'd get it so tight. Even the block, you can cut it off with the block, man. Getting it so tight, it is what it is. It takes a lot of work, man.
The worst thing I find is putting on piercing valves, especially if it's in a tight corner, because you got to get the triangle set evenly so you get a good seal. Just moving the Allen key back and forth, it could take you like 5 minutes just to put on a piercing valve.
Yeah.
On that.
I had a guy, man, he refused to put those on the process stubs. Like, I'd go and follow him up to do something, like he's got one on the 3/8 suction line, and he's got one on the liquid line coming out of the condenser coil. I'm like, why did you do this? Now I got to, like, fix this, put taps on it. I was like, this is an absolute nightmare. Like, why are you doing this, dude? He's like, oh, that's where I was taught to put them. That's where I'm going to put them. I was like, well, see this line coming out of the dryer? There's nothing on it. See this line coming out of the compressor? There's nothing on it for a reason.
Yeah. Plus, the best thing about reaching coolers when it comes to like diagnosing them, if you're low, there's not much that you need to search.
No.
There's like maybe 5 feet of piping between evaporator and condensing unit. So it's going to be there, the evaporator, or if it has a hot gas loop, it's going to be in the hot gas loop.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing about R290 is the leak detectors kind of suck.
They're sensitive. That's what it is. Like,
yeah. So like, if you have a leak in the evaporator, as soon as you open the cover, as soon as you open that door, it's going to go off. You're like, okay, now I got to try to find it. I thought about getting that new D-Tech or the Inficon one that has a screen, because I guess you can get a tip for R290 like HC refrigerants.
Oh, you're talking about the Stratus, right? With the screen on it.
Yes, plus you can get the element for the HC stuff. So I thought about checking that out. It's just a little bit bigger of a pill than I want to swallow for a leak detector when you can buy that yellow gas mate for like $200.
So the D-Tech Stratus is their top of the line leak detector, and you're correct. That one you can switch it to the R290, but the D-Tech 3, which is the model under that Stratus, you can also do that with that leak detector as well. You can buy the cartridge for that and swap it out, and then have the sensor on that. Check out the D-Tech 3. It's a good leak detector. That's what I use. I would love to have the Stratus, but
it looks cool. I mean, I see everyone playing them on YouTube and like the cloud seeking mode and all this other stuff. I'm like, this thing's bad.
That's the best part of that, because you can literally pinpoint the leak based on the cloud hunting on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Generally, I have pretty good luck with nitrogen and bubbles. I have had some units where I couldn't find a leak, and manufacturer actually told me to throw 404 in there and just pressurize the shit out of it, find it that way.
Yeah, that's what I was told at the beginning too.
Delta.
If it was completely empty, just toss in a little bit of 404, throw it up with nitrogen, and you should be able to find it.
So, I'm sure you've noticed, like, if you notice, like, on the data tags, it says like maximum pressure on low side.
Yeah, like 120 psi on the low side, which is like nothing.
Yeah. So, I was working on a ice cream dipping cooler. So it was at a Hardee's is where they kept their ice cream for their milkshakes, and it's just like a chest freezer. There's no air. It's just like a coil around a box pretty much. And I changed the compressor and I couldn't find the leak, man. I had a leak and I was like, dude, it's not the compressor. Where is it? I was mad. I pumped this thing up to like 400 psi, and that pipe ruptured inside the coil and it blew the inside in. It caved in on itself. So I always make sure when I'm teaching guys, like, hey, pay attention to that low side high pressure, because it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
I wish I had video or picture of it, and I never did. So that was
before. I bet you pooped your pants when that thing blew up, though.
Oh, dude, it scared the crap. It was like a gun going off. I was like, what was that? And I looked inside and I was like, oh boy. Then I called the manufacturer and they're like, you need to buy, you guys are going to have to buy them a new freezer. And I was like, no, we're not. I had a leak. I just found it for you guys.
Yeah, no, I just found it for you guys. That's awesome.
So you done any boneheaded things in refrigeration or hot side over your career?
I've done a couple of boneheaded things, and luckily I caught my mistake after I was chasing my tail, essentially trying to figure out what the hell is going on. So one of them was assuming that the unit was 404. It was actually 448.
Ooh.
So I ended up mixing refrigerants. So then I had to yank the whole charge out, pull the vacuum, replace the dryer, put 448 back in. That's the thing. I wish people actually labeled especially for like walk-ins, because now you can have 448, you can have 449 on a new system at least.
Yep.
Label what's in there.
I've write on the cover. I write on it with a Sharpie. I need to get a paint pen. I used to use a paint pen and write on the condenser unit or write on the evaporator or both.
Filter dryer, something. But then you can always go by the TXV as well. But then again, you're just guessing at that point. That was my biggest boo-boo in refrigeration, I think, was that day where I mixed the two refrigerants, because my superheat was just womp, 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 womp. So I almost condemned the TX, and then when I looked at the TX, it had 448 on it. I'm like, oh no.
Dude, I've been down
No mistake.
I've been down that road. A guy was started to change the compressor, and it went into overtime, and he was going home, and he wouldn't stay and finish it, so I had to go finish it. So I got the compressor up on the roof, and he said, hey, he said, it's R22, and it was a freezer, and I was like, what? He's like, yeah, it's R22. I was like, okay. So I charged it up R22, and I'm like, it was late at night, so I came back the next morning, and I'm like, man, this thing's stuck at like 20 degrees. Superheat's stupid. I couldn't adjust. I was like, man, I'm going to change this TXV. And I started looking around, and I was like, that's a 404 valve. I was like, you son of a.
I don't think I've ever seen a freezer with R22 either.
Yeah, I second guessed him. I was like, you sure? Oh, yeah, it's 22. I'm positive. And nope, it was 404. I filled it up with 22 and everything. So I had to, like I said, next day, pull it all out, cut the dryer out, change the dryer, charge it for R404. Guess what? It ran perfect. I'm like, huh, nice. Thanks, dude. You just cost me a full day of work.
Oh, man. How many planned jobs have you done?
What do you mean?
Like on the Garland grills, the Plattons?
Oh, Plattons. I used to do a lot more than I do now. I do quite a bit. I don't know how long you've been on hot side, but they're in Wendy's now.
Yep.
So that's been a big push. The Wendy's grills. Wendy's is their own worst enemy, but the job security. So, but I do. It's hit or miss. It comes and goes in spurts.
I still keep my toes dipped in on the hot side, and not to do the actual work, but just to see who's getting what. Like A&W has the grills as well. Wendy's has the grills now. I know there's a lot of issues with the conduits where they snap and they break, and then that creates a whole plethora of other issues.
Yeah, so they did a conduit kit. I did some wiring. They had a wiring issue. I think they used the wrong size wire. I think I made a video about it. The wire just like you touched it and just like disintegrate in your hand, the insulation. So I had to go through and I had to do 3 conduit kits, 3 wire harness, all probes, and a McDonald's.
That is not a small job.
No, and I got there. It was 2 hours away. I got there at 4 a.m, and they had the grill on. I almost left. I almost turned around and left. I was like, nope. I pulled it out, pulled it to the back, lowered the Plattons down, pulled it out, pulled it to the back, and just let it sit there for like an hour and cool off. Like, what are you doing? I was like, you want to touch that thing? No.
Some of them are so clueless, man. And that was the worst when you did McDonald's PMs. You'd expect to have the grill off so you can start the PM on at least one grill, and both of them are running full tilt. That's the absolute worst.
When I used to do a lot of McDonald's when I first started, most of my stores would like have a maintenance guy. They call him a maintenance guy, and all they really do is like filter the fryers and like that kind of stuff. And like most of those guys, I'd pull the back off and they're like, "What do you want cleaned?" And I just tell them they get all the grease out the back. I'm like, "Sweet, you just did the hardest part of the whole job, man."
Yeah, 100%.
I had a guy that had a heat gun. He was melting all the grease out of the back. I was like, "This is awesome, dude. Sure, have at it, man."
Man, when I first started doing McDonald's, I don't know what it was, but there was a spurt of like 2-3 years where, like, for the fryers at least, it was always an issue with filter paper, them not filtering, and then it would clog the fitting in the back of the pot, where then you had to take out the return line, take out that fitting, and then all the crud is like cement in that little street 90. You got to hammer it out.
So,
It's the worst.
was that a Fry Master and have the actuator in the back? I guess that's it for tonight. I want to thank Nick for coming on, being a good guest. I'll probably have him on again. Nick's a pretty good guy. He's up in Canada, Toronto. I'll post his social media stuff. I know he's pretty big on LinkedIn. He likes showing his work off on there. Nick's looks like a 18-year vet, 15-year vet. Started off doing residential, changed over to cooking, and now he does refrigeration in restaurants. So thanks for coming on, Nick, and I appreciate everybody for stopping in and watching the show. Have a good night, guys. If you guys would, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the podcast. It really helps us grow and helps us know which direction to move in. Also, if you have any suggestions for guests, please email me at commercialkitchenchronicles@gmail.com. Or if you want to be a guest, email me. Love to have you guys on. Thanks a lot. See you next week.